My name is Clara Donati, and I never thought a family could betray someone so quietly, so completely. It started the week after the funeral. The house still smelled like lavender and lemon oil, my mother's signature scent. I had flown back from Boston 3 weeks earlier when the doctors told us there was nothing more they could do. My mother was fading, and I stayed. I fed her broth, changed her clothes, read her favorite poetry until she stopped responding. But when she passed, it wasn't peace that followed. It was silence. A silence that felt sharpened, deliberate. My siblings, Nico and Bianca, didn't cry much. They didn't talk much either, just disappeared into their phones or their rooms. The night after the burial, I asked what the plan was for the estate, for the house, the bank account, the will. They told me not to worry, that everything was already handled. I should have known then. The house sold in 9 days. I found out from a neighbor. She stopped me outside the gate with a forced smile and said, "You must be thrilled. The buyers loved the sunroom." Buyers. I walked back inside, heart pounding, and confronted Nico. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "It's done," he said. "We signed it last week." I stared at him. "We?" He shrugged. "Mom made us co-executors. You were never added to the new will, Clara. You've been gone for years." I looked at Bianca, expecting a flash of shame. "Nothing. Gone," I repeated. "I moved for grad school. Came back every holiday. I just took care of her for 6 weeks." Bianca sipped her iced coffee like I was a podcast she'd stopped listening to. "Mom changed everything last year. Said it'd be easier with just us. She told me I was still included," I whispered. "Well, apparently she changed her mind," Nico said, closing his laptop. "Anyway, it's done. And we split the assets. You don't need to get involved." The betrayal didn't hit like a slap. It was more like water filling a room, slow and suffocating. I left the next morning with 2 suitcases and my mother's old shawl. They didn't even say goodbye. I moved into a month-to-month rental on the outskirts of Boston, one of those buildings with peeling beige siding and 2 thin walls. I got a temp job at a clinic while I looked for something permanent. My bank account dipped below 4 figures. Some nights, I'd replay their words over and over. "You've been gone for years." As if being away for a job or a life I'd worked for meant I didn't belong anymore. As if being the one who changed Mom's 4 bag at 3 a.m. didn't matter. As if love didn't count unless it was notarized. Then came the call. It was a Tuesday afternoon, raining hard. I had just gotten off a difficult shift and was waiting for the bus when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Is this Clara Donati?" "Yes. This is Sullivan's Storage. You're listed as the primary contact on a unit in our New Haven location. It's been over a year since the last payment. We're scheduled to clear the unit next week unless someone claims it." What unit?" "Unit 311, under Lucia Donati." My mother. I didn't even ask my siblings. I knew they wouldn't care. I rented a car the next Saturday and drove down. The building was gray and rust-colored, wedged between a warehouse and an empty diner. The woman at the front desk handed me a key and a warning. "You've got until Monday before it goes to auction." I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe a few broken lamps or a box of Christmas decorations. But when I opened the roll-up door to Unit 311, my breath caught. There were 12 boxes stacked neatly, each one labeled in my mother's elegant handwriting. One simply said, "Clara." I sat on the concrete floor and opened it. Inside were letters, cards, old drawings I had made in kindergarten. A photo of me at my med school graduation, one I never even knew she had. A journal, a tiny bracelet from when I was born. And at the bottom, an envelope marked, "To be opened only by Clara." In case I can't tell her in person. My hands shook as I slid it open. "By Clara, if you're reading this, then I didn't get the chance to say it all. So I need you to know, I didn't forget you. I never excluded you. I trusted Nico and Bianca to include you because I thought, naively, that love would be enough. But just in case it wasn't, There are things in these boxes only you will understand. Records, statements, documents that belong to you. I kept them here so no one could accidentally throw them away. And there's one more thing. In box 4, under the books, you'll find the real reason I never feared for your future. I love you always. I opened box 4 like it was rigged to explode. Under a stack of old cookbooks and 2 photo albums, I found a manila envelope. Inside, original stock certificates, investment records, a handwritten ledger, and a notarized document transferring 100% ownership of a silent partnership in a biotech startup. To me, the company name leapt out at me, Provirus. Heard of it? A biotech firm that had just been acquired by a major pharmaceutical company for an 8-figure sum. My mother, she had invested early, quietly, and somehow she'd done it in my name. I didn't sleep that night. I researched the company, traced the stocks, ran the numbers. If the documents were real, and they looked real, then my shares were now worth close to $3.8 million. All those years I worried about rent, worked night shifts, ate canned soup to save for textbooks. And she knew. She knew and still believed I could stand on my own. But she wanted a safety net for me, just in case the rest of the family turned cold. The next day, I took the documents to a lawyer, then to a CPA. Everything checked out. Every form was properly notarized. Every share properly transferred. Every ledger accurate. And all of it legally mine. No one else even knew it existed. 2 days later, Nico called me. "Hey," he said casually. "Bianca and I were just talking. Thought maybe we should all get dinner sometime." "Really?" "Yeah. I mean, things were tense after Mom died. But we're still family." Family. The word landed like a punchline. I smiled into the phone. "That's sweet. But I'm busy this week." "You sure?" "Positive," I said. "But tell Bianca I said hi." Then I hung up. I didn't tell them about the storage unit, or the letter, or the $3.8 million. Let them wonder. The night after the burial, I asked what the plan was for the estate. Bianca didn't look up from her phone. "We're already handling it," she said. "Don't worry," Nico added. "You've been through a lot, Clara. Go rest. We've got the legal stuff under control." And blinked. "Handling what?" "There's a will. Mom and I talked about it last year." She said a lot of things when she was on morphine. Bianca cut in, standing. "Don't stress. We'll take care of everything." Something in her tone made my chest tighten. Cold clipped. Too fast. By the end of that week, I was no longer welcome in the house. It wasn't said outright, but the guest room was suddenly needed for storage, and Nico asked when I was flying back to Boston. They sent me off with a small box of my childhood books, an old scarf of Mom's, and a travel mug that still had a sticker on the bottom. Nothing more. I didn't know they'd already met with a real estate agent, or that they'd sold the house in a private cash deal, or that they'd cleaned out all the bank accounts before probate could even begin. I found out 2 months later, through a friend of a friend who saw a sold sign in front of our childhood home. Called Nico first. He didn't answer. Then Bianca. She picked up. "Clara, I'm in a meeting. You sold the house." There was a pause. "Yes," she said eventually. "Look, it was what Mom would have wanted. To move on. Without telling me. You don't live here. You live in Boston. You didn't even contribute to the mortgage the past 5 years. We handled it. What about the will?" "There wasn't one," she said too quickly. "And everything was joint, so it went to us." Not me. The next few weeks were a blur of phone calls, lawyer referrals, and slammed doors. Without a will, and with Bianca somehow claiming joint ownership on key documents, I had nothing. No share of the sale. No furniture. Not even a photograph. They took it all. I tried to tell myself it was just money. Just things. But it wasn't. It was erasure. It was the betrayal of people who had shared your childhood and then discarded you like a loose button. I was back at my tiny apartment in Boston, trying to rebuild some kind of routine. teaching piano lessons during the day, crying into takeout containers at night, wondering how my mother, who'd once made me feel like I was the center of her universe, had left so little proof I'd existed in hers. That's when the voicemail came. "Hi, this message is for Clara Donati. My name is Henry with Secure Vault Storage off Brookline Avenue. Your payment for Unit 408 is now 6 months overdue. Please note that per our policy, the unit will be auctioned if unpaid by the 10th. If this is a mistake, call us back." I frowned. Storage unit. I'd never rented one. I almost deleted the message. But something made me press one to save it. The next day I drove to Secure Vault. It was a low-slung building tucked behind a strip mall. Chain-link fence. Keypads on every door. Smelled like dust and rubber mats. I stepped into the front office, and a bored-looking man in a polo shirt glanced up. "Name: Clara Donati." He typed something. His eyes changed. "Oh, 408. Yes. You're listed as primary on that unit. Been open since 2016. Auto-drafted until 6 months ago. Paid up, then it stopped." Blink. "Who opened it?" "Secondary name was Teresa Donati. My mother. She opened it. She paid for it. She listed me as the backup." My hands were sweating. "Can I see it?" He hesitated. "I mean, technically yes. You're the authorized user." He handed me a metal key and buzzed the door open. Unit 408 was down a long hallway, 3rd left, 2nd on the right. The second I opened it, a smell hit me, floral, faint. Lavender sachets, just like her closets. Inside boxes. Neat rows. Labeled in thick black marker. Some yellowed with age. Some still sealed. I stepped inside, heart pounding. One box said, "Clara School." Another, "Mom's Cookbooks." Another, "Dad's Records." I dropped to my knees. I was in a mausoleum of memory. My mother's memory. Everything my siblings said was gone. Was here. Hidden. 4 hours I sat cross-legged on the floor, opening box after box. My baby book. Her handwritten letters. Photo albums. Even old VHS tapes labeled Christmas 1998. But it was the box in the very back, small, white and unmarked, that changed everything. Inside, under layers of tissue paper, was a sealed manila envelope. My name written in ink I recognized instantly. My mother's neat cursive. And a post-it on top. "Only if they betray you." Froze. My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside, a letter. Dated 2 years ago. "My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, it means something has gone terribly wrong. I tried to believe the 3 of you would take care of each other. That you'd be fair. But if you're here, then I was wrong. Sorry. You have always been the one who sees things clearly. Who loves without conditions. That's why I trusted you with this. Everything they think they sold isn't what it seems. Start with the deeds in the black folder. Then call Mr. Salazar. He knows what to do. He helped me prepare. You were never forgotten. Love always, Mom." My mouth was dry. I reached back into the box. And sure enough, under the envelope, a black folder. Inside, copies of property deeds. Some still in my mother's name. Some in a trust with my name as sole beneficiary. One, shockingly, was for a small commercial lot in Cambridge I didn't even know she owned. There were also photocopies of wire transfers, stock certificates, a trust document dated and signed 6 months before her death, and a single business card. Luis Salazar, estate planning attorney. I clutched it in my hand, and for the first time in months I smiled. Not because I was vindicated yet, but because I finally had something they didn't know about. The next morning I didn't call Nico or Bianca. Called Luis Salazar. His voice was calm, warm, older maybe. "I was wondering when you'd call," he said. "You knew about me. I knew about all of you. But Teresa gave me very specific instructions. She said if her daughter Clara ever reached out, only then would I be allowed to act." "Act how?" He didn't answer right away. Do you have the black folder? Yes. Good. Then I think it's time you came in. Salazar's office was in a stone building in Beacon Hill, tucked between a wine shop and a tailor that looked like it hadn't changed since 1950. His receptionist led me through a creaky door into a sunlit room filled with books and brass lamps. Luis stood and extended a hand. Late 60s. Navy blazer. White beard. The kind of lawyer you'd see in an old movie. The kind that still believed in honor. Your mother, he said, was one of the smartest women I've ever worked with. She never told me about you. She didn't tell anyone. That was the point. He motioned for me to sit and opened a drawer. I have something for you. He placed an envelope on the desk. My full name written across the front. Inside, an original will, signed and notarized, dated 2 months before her passing. Not the one Bianca had filed. This one was different. It listed all assets, all properties, all investments, and it split them evenly among the 3 siblings, on paper. But then came the clause. In the event of intentional fraud, concealment, or unauthorized sale of any estate asset by any party, that party forfeits all rights to said estate. Their shares shall be reallocated to the remaining heirs at the executor's discretion. And the executor? Me. My jaw tightened. This changes everything. Luis nodded. It does. But only if you're ready to fight. It wasn't a word I liked. I was the quiet one, the mediator, the one who avoided conflict. But now, the siblings who erased me were about to learn what I'd found. Luis guided me through everything, confirming deed ownership, the legality of the will, and how Bianca had filed an older version of the will. She'd told the court it was the only known copy. Forgery. Well, just omission, but still fraud. And that meant her inheritance, and Nico's, could be legally revoked. Luis smiled gently. We can start the legal proceedings. But first, I think you should know something. He slid a folder toward me. Inside, a breakdown of the Cambridge commercial property, the one I hadn't known existed. My mother had bought it under an LLC years ago, housed 2 small businesses, and both tenants were still paying rent. I scanned the numbers. Luis, this is over $12,000 a month. He nodded. And the property's value has quadrupled since she bought it. The trust assigned it solely to you. I sat back in the chair, dizzy. I had gone from invisible to holding all the cards. But I wasn't ready to announce it yet. I wanted to know why they did it. Why they left me out. Why Bianca, my own sister, looked me in the eye and said, "You were never on the will." So I drove down, back to New Haven, to a brunch Bianca had posted on Instagram. It was at a rooftop cafe. Expensive. Pretentious. I didn't say I was coming. I just walked in. Bianca nearly choked on her mimosa. Clara. Nico looked like he'd seen a ghost. Didn't expect me, I said, smiling as I pulled out a chair. Bianca recovered first. What are you doing here? I was just in town. Thought I'd say hi. We never really talked about the house. About Mom. Nico shifted uncomfortably. We didn't think you'd care. I did care. She was my mother too. Bianca scoffed. Clara, you've always been dramatic. You left. You lived your own life. Mom moved heaven and earth for you both, I said softly. She paid your tuition, covered your rent when you couldn't work. And I never resented that. I loved her too. But what you did, selling everything without telling me. Bianca leaned in. You think you deserved something just because you showed up for the last few weeks? I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Let her words hang in the air. Then I stood. You should be careful with how confident you are, Bianca. Sometimes the truth waits. But it always arrives. 3 days later I filed the paperwork. Luis submitted the newer will. Filed an injunction on the house sale proceeds. Froze Bianca's and Nico's accounts tied to the estate. Issued a formal request for a fraud investigation into the false affidavit they'd signed. They didn't take it well. Nico texted me 4 times. Then left a voicemail. Angry. Panic. Bianca emailed me a short, clipped message. "This is insane. You're turning on your family for money. You're pathetic." I didn't respond, but I forwarded the email to Luis for documentation. Weeks passed. Kept working. Quietly. Only. Every day I walked past the folder in my apartment with the copies of the deeds, the letters, the new will. No longer felt like revenge. Felt like restoration. Then one morning I got a letter in the mail. Official letterhead. Court seal. It was confirmation. The court had accepted the new will. The fraud inquiry was proceeding. Bianca and Nico's shares were frozen and reallocated. Everything they sold, transferred, or claimed now belonged to me. That night, I opened a bottle of wine and lit a candle in front of Mom's photo. "Found it, Mom," I whispered. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. Felt whole. By the time the court date arrived, I hadn't seen Nico or Bianca in over 2 months. Luis advised me to keep it that way. "Let the system do the speaking," he said. "You've done everything by the book." Still, part of me wasn't ready. Not because I was unsure of the outcome, but because I was unsure of how I'd feel watching my siblings lose. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted acknowledgement. A moment where someone said, "You mattered too." The courtroom was small. Neutral carpet. Buzzing lights overhead. Everything smelled like printer ink and anxiety. Bianca walked in first. Designer coat. Sunglasses perched on her head like a tiara. Nico followed, fidgeting with his collar. His confidence cracked just enough to show. Their lawyer, a sharp-tongued man named Dietrich, smirked at me as he passed. Luis sat beside me, calm as ever, papers in order. The judge entered. Everyone stood. What happened next wasn't dramatic. Not in the way movies show it. There were no shouting matches. No last-minute confessions. Just facts, documents, timelines, the real will, the fraudulent affidavit, the sale dates, the letter from my mother, the black folder, the trust document, everything piece by piece. And slowly the weight shifted. Bianca started squirming in her seat. Nico's foot tapped uncontrollably. Their lawyer's objections grew more desperate, irrelevant, prejudicial, hearsay. The judge overruled nearly all of them. Then Luis stood for the final motion. "We respectfully ask the court to honor the updated estate documentation, confirm my client as the sole executor, and reallocate all assets previously mishandled, per the clause within the will." Silence. The judge glanced through the documents one final time. Then he looked at Bianca and Nico. "The court finds in favor of Ms. Donati." Just like that, it was done. Outside the courthouse, Bianca brushed past me without a word. Nico stayed behind. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not younger, just deflated. "Clara," he said quietly, "we didn't think it would go this far." I tilted my head. "You mean you didn't think I'd fight?" He didn't answer. "I didn't want to win like this," I said softer. "But you left me no choice. We thought Mom had cut me out. Finished. She didn't. You did." He swallowed hard. "What now?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "That's up to you." Then I walked away. The next few weeks were a blur. Luis helped me navigate the logistics, retitling the property, securing the bank accounts, finalizing ownership of the Cambridge commercial lot. When everything cleared, I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at a bank balance that now held a 7-digit number. And I cried. Not out of joy. Not even out of vindication. But because I had survived something I hadn't known was survivable. Betrayal doesn't break all at once. It leaks. Seeps into how you see yourself. And that day, something in me finally dried up. Healed. I didn't tell many people about the money. I didn't quit my job or buy a mansion. Instead, I made 3 decisions. I moved into a modest townhouse near the clinic where I worked. I started a college fund in my mother's name, for young women aging out of foster care. I returned to the storage unit one final time. Not to clean it out, but to say goodbye. Inside, it still smelled faintly like lavender. I ran my hand along the boxes. So many memories. So many things that had waited quietly for me, believing I would come back. I found one final envelope tucked in the lid of a box labeled, Clara, Misk. It simply said, "For after." Inside was a letter. "Clara, if you're reading this, then the truth is out. And I hope you held your head high. You were always the one who listened, who saw the world not for what it demanded, but for what it could be. You were never the loudest, but you were always the strongest. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from what came, but I had faith in you. I still do. There's one more thing you should know. The investment I made. Provirus. It was never meant to be a secret. It was a seed. For something only you could grow. Do something good with it. Something honest. You'll know what that means when the time comes. Love always, Mom." That night, I sat on my new balcony, watching the city breathe under the stars. I wasn't broken. I wasn't angry. I was rebuilding. Not just my life, but my understanding of who I was. I'd been the daughter they left behind. The sister they erased. The forgotten one. But in the end, I was the one Mom trusted most. And the ones who tried to sell everything behind my back. They never knew they'd left the most valuable thing untouched. A letter. The truth. Me. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.